Freddie Mercury was one of the most legendary performers in rock history. As the charismatic frontman of Queen, Mercury captivated audiences with his soaring four-octave voice and flamboyant stage presence. But his life was cut tragically short when he died of AIDS in 1991 at just 45 years old. He spent his final days in the care of his devoted partner, Jim Hutton. Now, over 30 years later, Hutton's detailed account of Mercury's heartbreaking last moments has come to light. Join Factsverse as we examine their enduring relationship and the tragic yet moving details of the Queen singer's final days. Mercury and Hutton's relationship. The love story between Freddie Mercury and Jim Hutton has touching beginnings. Mercury, the iconic lead singer of Queen, first met Hutton in 1985 at one of the outrageous parties Mercury was famous for hosting. Hutton had been working as a catering staff member that night, and Mercury, who was used to being surrounded by celebrities and socialites, was instantly drawn to the down-to-earth Irishman. But when Mercury first offered to buy Hutton a drink, Hutton declined, not realizing he was speaking to a global rock star. The two men didn't cross paths again until over a year later, when they ran into each other at a London nightclub. This time, when Mercury offered to buy Hutton a drink, he accepted, and the two had an immediate connection. Within weeks, Hutton had moved into Mercury's lavish Garden Lodge estate in Kensington. While Hutton continued working as a hairdresser, he soon transitioned into the role of Mercury's live-in gardener and full-time partner. As Mercury's fame continued to skyrocket with Queen through the late 80s, Hutton provided a quiet, steadfast presence away from the spotlight. Mercury was very protective of his private life, and his relationship with Hutton was known only to close friends and associates. The two men wore wedding bands, and Mercury referred to Hutton affectionately as his husband, though same-sex marriage was still illegal. Known for his flamboyant stage persona, Mercury could fully be himself and relax into domesticity with Hutton. Hutton traveled with Mercury and was by his side at important career moments like Queen's iconic 1985 Live Aid performance. Through Mercury, Hutton found a passionate, talented soulmate. In Hutton, Mercury had found true love and stability. Though Mercury shunned a public coming out, he lived in private as his genuine self with Hutton. Mercury's AIDS diagnosis. In the mid-1980s, the emerging AIDS crisis began devastating the gay community and men who have sex with men. Freddie and Hutton could not avoid the specter of the disease for long. The first signs something was amiss came in 1987 when Mercury was diagnosed with HIV/AIDS. He confided the news to Hutton, giving him the option to end the relationship for his own safety. Hutton reportedly refused to leave Mercury and later wrote he had no intention of going anywhere and was committed for the long haul. Though the couple put up a brave front, the reality of AIDS in the 1980s was grim. Ignorance, fear, and stigma surrounding the disease persisted, even in the medical community. Those diagnosed often suffered alone, with minimal treatment options before antiretroviral therapy emerged in the mid-90s. Doctors gave Mercury a bleak prognosis, estimating he had weeks or months to live. Mercury refused to issue a public statement divulging his illness, wanting to preserve his privacy. Tabloid speculation swirled about Mercury's gaunt appearance and seclusion in his final years. Only his inner circle knew the truth, that behind closed doors, Mercury was experiencing immense suffering and physical decline. As the disease progressed, Mercury continued making music with Queen, determined to perform as long as his strength allowed. His increasingly frail physical appearance shocked fans and friends. Once an energetic frontman who captivated audiences, he was now confined to bed often. He recorded when he could, while spending treasured quiet time at Garden Lodge with Hutton and his cats. He valued every moment, maintaining his zest for life against the odd. In late 1990, weakened by fatigue and pain, Mercury issued a statement confirming media rumors about his health. Just one day later, he lost mobility in his left leg, a condition that persisted until his death. By 1991, he had stopped taking most medications aside from pain relief and relied on round-the-clock care from Hutton and close friends. His failing health and Hutton's care. As his health was in rapid decline from AIDS and related complications, Jim became his primary caregiver. Gone were his lively performances and larger-than-life persona. Freddie's days were now quiet and confined to bed. Mercury took refuge in small comforts, his cats, his art collection, his fresh flowers, and soothing baths. The extent of his frailty was a closely guarded secret outside his inner circle. The final moments. By November of 1991, Freddie was nearing the end of his tragic battle with AIDS. Confined to bed at his Kensington home, he was cared for by Jim and other friends. In his memoir, Hutton recounted the excruciating week leading up to Mercury's death. He grew weaker daily, struggling to eat and suffering uncontrolled shaking episodes. His fragility was evident, yet he continued to display bravery and humor that touched Hutton. During periods of lucidity, Mercury reminisced with Hutton about their happiest moments together. The nights brought little relief, with Hutton needing to sedate Mercury through the early morning hours when the AIDS-related pain crescendoed. Mercury retained his vanity and dignity, even on the precipice of death, insisting his sheets be changed after embarrassing accidents. His once mighty voice was reduced to a whisper, yet he found the strength to ask Hutton, "Do you still love me?" On November 24, 1991, Freddie passed away at age 45 after a long and agonizing battle with AIDS. At his bedside was his faithful partner Jim, who cradled Mercury during his final hours and bore witness to the iconic singer's last moments of life. The previous morning, Mercury had uttered his final words, pee-pee, indicating he needed assistance to the bathroom. Hutton had carefully moved Mercury's severely weakened body, trying to prevent another traumatic bone fracture. But once in bed again, an excruciating crack was heard, likely Mercury's femur splintering. He let out an anguished scream, described by Hutton as deafening. What followed was a torturous seizure that left Mercury completely rigid and unconscious. Hutton helplessly watched the violent episode subside, leaving Mercury lifeless and mute for his remaining hours. When the doctor arrived, Mercury was unresponsive with shallow breathing. His hands and feet had turned blue and cold. Hutton maintained a heartbreaking bedside vigil. Mercury never regained consciousness to exchange any loving words with his partner of 7 years. Hutton took some small comfort in the peaceful expression that finally crossed Mercury's face, eyes closed and free of pain. In Hutton's memoir, he remarked feeling tremendous relief knowing Mercury's suffering was over. At 7:48, Hutton felt Mercury take a final, quiet breath and exhale his last. He dutifully stopped the carriage clock on Mercury's nightstand, the clock he had gifted him, preserving the exact moment Mercury left the world. In death, he appeared serene. Hutton recalled that Mercury's skin glowed with an almost supernatural radiance, free of the illness that had so ravaged his body. Now it's time to hear from you. What's your favorite memory of Freddie Mercury? Let us know in the comments section below.